Time loops, deja vu, and glitches you can't unsee. 3 months ago, my watch stopped at 3:27 p.m. on a Tuesday. I didn't think much of it, just replaced the battery and reset the time. That same day, I noticed the digital clock on my microwave flickering between 3:26 and 3:27. A power surge, I assumed. I reset that too. I wish I had paid more attention. The first major incident happened a week later. I was driving home from work, taking my usual route through Oak Ridge Park, when I saw a red sedan veer sharply to avoid a cyclist, clip the curb, and flip onto its roof in a shower of glass and scraping metal. I slammed on my brakes, pulled over, and called 911 while running toward the wreckage, heart hammering in my chest. But when I reached the spot where the car had overturned, there was nothing there. No car, no broken glass, no injured driver, not even skid marks on the pavement. The 911 operator was asking what my emergency was as I stood there, bewildered, turning in a complete circle. The cyclist pedaled past me, oblivious, following the same path I'd seen seconds before. Then the red sedan appeared around the corner, approaching at normal speed. I watched, frozen, as the exact same scenario began unfolding. The cyclist swerving, the car attempting to avoid collision. I screamed a warning that neither could possibly hear. This time, the driver corrected without hitting the curb. The car continued on its way. The cyclist continued on theirs. Nothing happened. I hung up on the 911 operator without explanation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the crash that both did and didn't happen. I told myself it was an hallucination, stress, overwork. Maybe I needed to see a doctor. But then it happened again and again. Small moments of deja vu transformed into something far more disturbing, premonitions of events that would unfold differently the second time around. A coffee cup shattering in a cafe, then remaining intact when the scenario repeated. A child falling from playground equipment, then being caught by an attentive parent in the replay. A colleague clutching their chest in pain during a meeting, then continuing their presentation without incident when the moment looped. Each time, the initial event felt completely real. Each time, the second version overwrote the first as if it had never happened. And each time, I was the only one who remembered both versions. I started documenting everything, writing detailed accounts, recording voice memos, setting up cameras in my apartment. But the recordings never captured the discrepancies. My written accounts would mysteriously change, the ink seeming to rearrange itself when I wasn't looking. Voice memos deleted themselves. Reality was editing out its own mistakes. By the third week, I noticed the pattern. Each glitch, each time loop, centered around 3:27, sometimes AM, sometimes PM, but always 3:27, the moment my watch had stopped. On day 23, I met Eliza. I was in a bookstore browsing the physics section when a woman approached the same shelf. She reached for a book on quantum mechanics, then froze, her hand hovering in midair. "It's happening to you too, isn't it?" she said without looking at me. "The loops, the glitches." My breath caught. "How did you know?" She turned to face me and I flinched. Her right eye was normal, hazel, intelligent, tired. But her left eye was wrong. The iris seemed to shift and pixelate, like a digital image with corrupted data. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't, flickering in and out of existence. "Your watch," she said, nodding toward my wrist. "It stopped at 3:27, didn't it?" I nodded, unable to look away from her glitching eye. "Mine too," she said, showing me her own watch, an analog timepiece frozen at the same minute. "Along with 14 others I've found so far, we're having the same experience." "What's happening to us?" I whispered. "Reality is fracturing," she said. "Or being patched. I'm not sure which." Over coffee that she never seemed to actually drink, Eliza explained her theory. Something had happened at 3:27 on that Tuesday. Something catastrophic. So catastrophic that reality itself had been damaged. "I think we died," she said matter-of-factly. "All of us, maybe everyone. But instead of accepting it, the universe, or whatever system we're operating in, is trying to repair itself, looping back, making corrections, attempting to find a version where the catastrophe doesn't happen." "That's insane," I said. even as part of me recognized the terrible logic in her words. Is it? Look at my eye. She leaned closer, and I forced myself to study the glitching iris. It's not there in the original timeline. It's a marker of the repair attempt. Your marker might be something you haven't noticed yet. She was right. That evening, examining myself in the mirror, I found it, a section of skin on my left forearm where my freckles occasionally rearrange themselves, shifting like stars in a miniature galaxy. Eliza introduced me to others like us. Marcus, whose teeth sometimes turned translucent. Danielle, whose fingernails grew in reverse when she wasn't watching. Hiroshi, who sometimes cast two shadows that moved independently of each other. All of them had experienced the time loops. All of them had watches or clocks that had stopped at 3:27. All of them had noticed reality correcting itself around them, editing out disasters large and small. We're glitches, Eliza explained during one of our group meetings. Artifacts from the original timeline that weren't properly overwritten. That's why we can see the corrections happening. So what was it? Danielle asked. What happened at 3:27 that day? I don't know, Eliza admitted, but I've been tracking backward, trying to find the epicenter. That was when she showed us her wall, hundreds of newspaper clippings, photographs, printouts of scientific articles, all connected by red string. At the center was a photograph of a research facility in New Mexico, the Western Quantum Research Institute. They were conducting an experiment that day, she said, something involving quantum superposition on a macroscopic scale. You think they caused this? Marcus asked. I think they broke something fundamental, Eliza replied. And now reality is stuck in a loop trying to fix it. We decided to visit the facility to find answers. 5 of us piled into Hiroshi's van and drove across 3 states. We arrived at 3:25 p.m. The institute looked abandoned, windows dark, parking lot empty. As we approached the main entrance, I felt a familiar sensation creeping over me, that strange doubling of perception that preceded a time loop. It's happening, I warned the others. At exactly 3:27, the air around the facility seemed to ripple. For one terrible moment, I saw what had really happened that day. The building engulfed in a sphere of distortion, reality itself peeling away from the center like layers of an onion. Inside the sphere, glimpses of something else, geometries that hurt to perceive, entities moving in dimensions beyond our comprehension. Then the moment passed. The building stood intact before us. Lights on, parking lot full, researchers walking calmly in and out. But we all saw it. And worse, we were seen. As we stood frozen in shock, a researcher exited the building and walked directly toward us. His movements were too smooth, too precise. He smiled, but the expression never reached his eyes. We've been expecting you, he said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The anomalies, the witnesses. What did you do? Eliza demanded. Nothing that can be undone, the researcher replied. This iteration is stable enough. The corrections are working. In time, the glitches will resolve themselves. His gaze swept over our group, lingering on Eliza's flickering eye, my shifting freckles, Marcus's translucent teeth. You should not exist, he continued. You are artifacts of a timeline that has been deprecated. Your persistence is problematic. He reached into his pocket and removed what looked like an ordinary eraser. This will only take a moment. You won't feel anything. We ran, that was 2 weeks ago. We've been moving constantly since then, never staying in one place for more than a night. Eliza disappeared 3 days ago. There, one moment, gone the next, in the middle of a sentence. Marcus vanished yesterday while pumping gas. The glitches are getting worse. This morning I noticed my reflection in the mirror continued moving for several seconds after I stopped. When I cut myself making breakfast, the blood flowed upward against gravity. I'm writing this account as a warning, though I doubt it will remain unchanged for long. Reality is still attempting to correct itself. And part of that correction seems to involve removing those of us who can see the seams in its fabric. If you're reading this and it suddenly changes, if sentences rearrange themselves or words disappear, know that you're seeing it too. The glitches, the corrections, the desperate attempt to patch over a catastrophe that may have already ended everything. Check your watch. Is it 3:27? Has it always been 3:27? Look closely at yourself in the mirror. Is everything where it should be? Does it all stay where it belongs when you look away? They're coming for me now. I can feel the wrongness in the air, the same sensation that precedes a time loop. But this won't be a loop. This will be an erasure. If you can read this, if this text remains stable long enough for you to comprehend it, remember, reality isn't breaking, it's already broken, and whatever is fixing it doesn't want witnesses.